All right, everybody, welcome back to another Echoes of Sunday episode. I'm your host, Cody Burshing, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Logan Cook.
Hey guys, glad to be back.
Once again, and we have a very special guest today. We have Professor Mark Paustian. How are you doing today, Professor?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for asking.
We're so happy to have you on.
I'm happy to be on.
This is a really cool moment. We've looked forward to this for a while. We've had it on the calendar, and now that it's finally here, it's just such an awesome blessing. But how's your year been going so far, Professor?
It's been a little bit overcommitted. I just did a webinar for the Cross Train Network. That was on Thursday. So that was a new experience. And that was the last of about 7 or 8 kind of extra things. So it's been a whirlwind, but going well. I mean, I always say people would kill to have my problems. I get to do a lot of cool stuff out there, and sometimes it's stressful, but I should not complain.
Are you feeling a little bit of a relief now, or no?
Definitely feeling a reprieve.
Okay.
Yeah, a chance to breathe. And 10 days from now, the semester is put to bed and the grades are in. And
Yes, sir.
it's always a weird moment. It's like, I feel like Jesus calming the storm. Like, you're in this storm all semester, and all of a sudden it's done.
Is that a good thing? That
All of a sudden it's done. It's calm. And
all of our work is a storm?
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
It's interesting on the flip side of that as a student. I feel like it's the storm is just beginning, leading into exam week here. I got more stuff going on, more exams to study for.
Oh, believe me, the end is 10 days out, but a lot has to happen before you get to that point of closure. But that's what's so... Well, one thing I love about being here is a pastor doesn't have those moments of closure. Like, we're kind of done with something. When you put a semester to bed,
Yeah.
that's a really neat feeling. So,
Do you think pastors should be able to feel that more often?
well, it's just different. I suppose when I do a funeral, that's closure because someone's life of faith has run its course, and you got to serve them in that way. But otherwise, rarely do you have a feeling of I'm done.
Right.
That thing is done.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
tough.
That's an interesting
It's
thought.
different.
Yeah.
It's hard for me, at least, to always have more to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard not to finish one thing and think what the next thing is right away. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Sometimes I think I just want a day with nothing to do.
yeah.
Just one.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a vacation, I guess. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if you had more than like one day, though, you'd probably want more stuff to do again. At
Yeah,
least for me.
probably.
Like, I don't know if I would like just sitting down, not doing anything for a while.
That's really true. I look forward to the breaks, but if I ever get the blues, it's really when I have too much time just to sit
Yeah.
and think,
Yeah.
It's been a while since I felt that, but yeah, it's good to have things to do that you can kind of get lost in, things that are worthwhile. That's kind of better than, total downtime.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
My thought, I guess, has always been if we have an eternity for downtime and rest, then I feel like I can work hard for however long my time of grace is, I suppose. I don't know.
I feel like we're going to work in heaven. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to have stuff to
But
do.
it's a different kind of work, I guess. Nobody really knows what that's going to be like, I suppose.
That's true.
Well, there won't be the thorns.
Yeah.
There won't be the curse. But I think so, too. I think we're going to be completely engaged and occupied in things that are going to fill us.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's cool to think about. You could probably have a whole podcast episode just solely on the idea of heaven and what we can look forward to as Christians. But, yeah. I guess we always like to kind of start by asking the question of what is your faith story like, Professor? What has your relationship been like with God over the years, and what's kind of led you to this moment here at MLC as a professor now?
Wow, that's not a
Not a small question.
Yeah.
not a small question. Well, sometimes I think that as a Lutheran, baptized as a baby, we've actually got a pretty good story. That's actually not a bad testimony.
Yeah.
When you think about baptism as really the best picture there is of the grace of God. And then the story is I don't have a day that I didn't know the love of God. I don't have a memory of not being secure in His grace. I mean, there have been challenges and struggles across life, but I guess it's a story of being immersed in the love of Jesus and secure and having a life that an awful lot of people don't know about. Don't even know what that's like.
Yeah.
I remember I had a church member, and in a sermon I quoted a line from some Christian music. It was, "Remember the hopelessness when you were lost." That was the line. I think it was Michael Card. "Remember the hopelessness when you were lost." And a lady who I got to see come to faith, she came up to me afterwards really moved by that, and she says, "Pastor, I remember." And so that's what I'm saying is my stories, I don't remember.
You don't remember.
I don't remember a moment when I was lost. So what was the rest of your question?
Just what was your journey like to coming to MLC and now becoming a professor and where you are now?
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, it's a loaded question right off the rip here.
Should I talk about deciding to come here? I mean, is that...
It is completely up to you, Professor.
I'm curious, what were your parents? What was their faith life like?
Okay.
What was their influence on you as a child? And
okay, my father was a pastor, and his father, and his father.
And his father.
So I'm one of those people that grew up in very much a minister's culture, a pastor's culture, and so it was uncles and cousins and brothers who were all pastors, And so I have lots of memories of those men. I'm a little boy just listening to these men, I'm having a great time. They know how to laugh, but they just told their stories and made that life look really, really attractive to me, the pastoral life. So I don't know. It's no one ever asked me if I wanted to be a pastor since I was about 5. So when I was 5, so Marky, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said a pastor, and I got so much love for that and so much affirmation that they kind of never asked me again.
Really?
And,
Wow.
yeah. And so being raised in that culture had a lot of great things about it, but it also was kind of being scripted down a path, just kind of being scripted into the ministry. And I made a decision, my wife did too, not to do quite the same with our children. That it's a good thing to know what's out there. It's a good thing to, we always think of setting our children free, setting them free in terms of vocation. And so we approach that a little bit differently than my parents did. But, God gets us into ministry in the ways he gets us, and I'm not really regretting that.
Did you feel like they were pushing you towards that?
That's why I use the word scripted. Like, no. Just kind of, it was, I don't know, I want to say a path of least resistance. It just was what was normal, and it's just kind of what you do in my family.
Like it was laid out for you, but you still wanted it. It wasn't something that...
Yeah, and I was going to say, God gets you where he wants you, and that's how it works in vocation. So it's not like I regret it. I'm very, very thankful for the life I've been given to live. I don't know. My faith journey, I would say, includes, I don't know. I've always lived my whole life with inadequacy, and especially as a young person, just deeply and profoundly aware of my limitations, and so pastoral ministry was very, very challenging on that level too. But so the big theme of my faith journey, since you ask it that way, is really finding sufficiency in Christ. When I'm weak, I'm strong. And that simple scripture, that verse, just, I know it means a lot to all of us. I mean, this is defining. It's hard to even express how much that my grace is sufficient for you. And so it's been kind of a way to think about the arc of my life is kind of growing up with those, I don't know, I want to say demons of inadequacy, but the whole while I know Jesus is my Savior and he loves me, and I think it's what has mostly shaped me into be the kind of minister of the gospel that you don't got to remind me to put Christ on the cross. You don't got to remind me to portray that grace. It's just the truth of that has just opened up to me across a lifetime of struggle. My theme verse right now is probably, I know it's for me to live as Christ and to die as gain. I put that at the bottom of my email maybe 6 months ago. It's probably been about that long that's been, like I say, just a verse that opens up, you know. I don't know of a better verse that helps me to really contend with my own personal idolatries, right? For me to live is what people think of me, or for me to live is all the things you could put into that spot. But for me to live as Christ is just such a brilliant sentence, because anything else you put in that spot is going to kind of, I don't know, kind of want to eat you alive, you know, anything else you put in that spot. But Christ in that spot, for me to live as Christ, then you can say that to die is gain. Which means that it isn't that death comes closer to us and will take away everything that we live for. But death will come and it will bring to us the thing we made our whole life all along. So it's just a brilliant sentence, for me to live as Christ and to die as gain. And I'm finding, I'm struggling for the words to describe my faith journey, but I think those are the themes. A theme is inadequacy and need, and a theme is sufficiency in Jesus. And a theme is just growing on me more and more, that Christ is my everything and my all.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, that Corinthians passage, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness, kind of summarizes the life of a Christian, I think, in general. I mean, the world is ever changing. It's not consistent. It's never going to give you what you need. And yet all you need is right there for you, just at the foot of the cross. And I love that verse. Logan and I, we actually roomed together last year, and we had that on a tapestry hanging in our room. And it is absolutely one of my favorite, most powerful verses in the Bible. It was
a very important verse to me. I think my freshman year and sophomore year, I remember just one day I was at the end of my rope and just feeling like I couldn't be enough for anybody, for myself, for my family, for my schooling and stuff like that. And in my devotion, I came across that verse, and I just remember it. It hit me really, really hard, and I broke down. And like when I actually realized what it meant, it's like I can't be enough for this, because I don't have to be either. Like that's the beautiful part, is he's gonna carry me. And so ever since then, I've been kind of going back to that, reminding myself of that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd also say, we're not enough to carry all those burdens on our own. Like, we can't be everything for all people 100% of the time. Like, there's going to be cracks in the armor. But we don't need to be, because Christ is all that for us. And I think Christ just kind of says, we're enough to him. And if we're enough for Christ, then, we're enough for the rest of the world too. I don't know. It's just powerful to think about, I think.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you mentioned your inadequacy was somewhat of like a demon that followed you around. And how did that look different in when you were younger versus maybe today?
Yeah, I was the kid that just could never figure out what the other kids were doing socially. And I think, people have harder struggles than this. I don't mean to make you feel terrible for me.
That doesn't mean it's not a struggle.
I found it very painful growing up. I think there's a lot of pain in the social thing. That's where the joy is too. It's in people, but pain. And so I was the kid that would just spend hours lying on my bed staring at the ceiling trying to figure out, how do they do what they do? Which means drawing their communication and saying stuff, for Pete's sake. I was such a quiet kid. And it's wonderful to be quiet. I realize that now, but I really struggled against it. And so whenever I get thinking about a lifelong fascination with communication. I often have to tell people it's not because I'm good at it. The lifelong fascination comes from just growing up with a hunger to connect with people and a hunger to relate well and know and be known by people. And so that's the form this inadequacy took as a young person, all the way through. I think maybe sophomore year in high school was when I first found out what it means to have a true friend, or a true friend to connect with and thrive in relationship, in that kind of connection. And so I don't know. I think the struggle probably does change over the years, and I think that when you become a pastor, then there's this whole new dimension to it. As you really think about what is a pastor meant to be, and what would an ideal pastor look like, and I think that sense of inadequacy just sort of broadens out, and you're trying to be everything to everybody, and foolishly. It's not. I'm not saying this is wise, but then the inadequacy kind of morphs into just meeting the demands of life, especially in a ministry context. And so, it's all been blessed. I wouldn't change any of it. I've come to really. I'm at a very, very grateful time in my life. When I think about being a pastor, I often think of it this way. Look, what was it actually like? Well, one thing, when I left the parish, I made a promise to myself. I'm not gonna forget what it was really like. I'm not gonna start to paint a rosy picture. Hey, I planted a church and it's a beautiful building, and I'm just not gonna do that, because that happened is just a testament to the grace of God. So what it was really like, if I think about it, was, and I should say this doesn't have to be anybody else's experience, but my experience was kind of struggling through the week, never really quite feeling like, I'm doing this well, or even know what I'm doing necessarily. And then Sunday morning comes, and I always put my heart and soul into preaching. I see it as the core activity. So Sunday morning comes after a week like that, and it would just so often be I can barely choke out the words. It was time to tell people of the love of God in Jesus, and even just to absolve them in the formal part of the liturgy. But I would just always find myself so deeply moved by the gospel that I was preaching and presenting. It's not one thing, right? And so that was what it was like, 12 years as a church planting pastor, just feeling that during the week, and then getting up on Sunday, and it just means so much. You're speaking to yourself first. And all of that, is the treasure of when I'm weak, I'm strong. So I wouldn't wish it away. I wouldn't wish it had been different. And now there's still inadequacy. It takes a different form. But, it's sort of an inadequacy to, be on top of every responsibility. It's a little bit different, But I don't mean to monopolize this conversation. I was saying before, it's an incredibly grateful time for me now. Incredibly grateful.
Did that feeling of inadequacy in your parish ministry specifically, did that make it harder to get up and do what you do on a Sunday morning? I know you said that you always felt overcome by the power of the gospel when you were preaching it, but was there ever a moment in that building up during the week, or maybe right before you get out in front of the people on Sunday morning, where when you're feeling, that weight of sin and doubt in your heart, that it affected you maybe negatively, perhaps?
Yeah, I think so. If I could change anything, I would go back and just say, hey, dude, stop carrying the weight of the world already. That's. I mean, it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that was the foolishness of starting a church from scratch and being off the charts introverted while you're doing the work of starting a church from total scratch. That's that was like quite a crucible in terms of. If you want to make somebody feel inadequate, that's how you do it.
Did you ever wonder, like, why did they give me this call?
Who thinks this is a good idea? But I would say I was scared enough. I worked really hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you land in this town, and we would like there to be a church here worshiping in 10 months, and so I would say it kind of drove me.
Was that your first call?
Too. Yeah, first call.
Okay. And so you didn't know what you were doing?
Did not know what I was doing.
You're just like, okay, we're going to figure this out.
I think nowadays they call church planters, so no one's listening to this freaking out about it. They call church planters, and there's a whole structure and support system and a whole long series of training things that you go through, and then there's a support network as well. And for me, I think it was a day in Milwaukee at the headquarters, and here you go. And then a mission counselor would come in every couple months. He would blow into town, and he would completely overwhelm me with everything I should be doing, and then he would just leave. And it took me a while to recover. So.
Was there ever a point in there where, after you heard your name read off on call day and your assignment, was there ever a moment that you had where you're like, this is not correct, like I'm not the right guy for this, or were you still able to say that God's will is going to be done? I'm just curious on what that was like.
Yeah, I got the call, and completely, like I said, who thinks this is a good idea? And so I get completely ashamed of myself. I took a nap.
Really?
Sometimes you just need a nap.
I just escape. This is
Let your brain wander somewhere else.
And so, years later, I met the district president, who reminded me of that day. It was years later that we were talking about that day, my call day. And he said, "Mark, do you know what you said to me on your call day?" And you said to me, "I wasn't expecting this," which is like a really stupid thing to say to a district president who just called you with all these hopes. And so what happened was I went to a party of a bunch of friends who all got their calls into ministry, and a couple who didn't. And so there was some of that going on. Walked into the party, long story short. And I saw a woman who I knew who was an atheist, and she was being surrounded by my friends who were all on fire with their new calls to be pastors, and they were, arguing her the existence of God, like 4-on-1 or 5-on-1,
Wow.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw this, and I'm in my own headspace. I went into the kitchen and talked to a friend there for a while, and later on, probably at least an hour later, I walked back into the living room, and there she sat. Her name was Michelle, sitting by herself. And I said to her, "Did you get to say what you thought?" And she said, "Are you kidding? Did I get to say what I thought?"
Wow.
And I said, "Well, tell me, what do you think?" And she poured out her complaint, her soul's complaint about what an awful world this is and how much she has suffered. And I'm an introvert, so I just let her talk and let her talk and let her talk and let her talk.
It's the most fun.
Yeah, and she kind of came to the end of all of that, kind of ran out of words. And I had never had this conversation before in my life. And all I said to her was, that must be really hard, to live in a world like this. That's everything you said it is and even worse. And to have no God besides. And she said, "Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard." And never having had this conversation before in my life, I said something like, and this is like 40 years ago or 38 years ago, but I said, "Can I show you a side of God you haven't seen before?" And I spoke to her about the Son of God on the cross. That's for her. And he suffered knows all about it, and it was for you. It was all for you, you know. And I don't know how well I said any of that. It's as a distant memory, but I remember vividly what she said back. What she said to me was, when you put it that way, it makes sense. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. What are you talking about? But, of all the days to have the best conversation I'd ever had, of all the days, it was the day of my call day, where I was in my mind. And it was just like, thanks, God, you did this for me. You did it just for me. And what it left me with was that there's going to be a way for me to witness. There's going to be a way for me to take on this exploratory work.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I'm going to listen to people. I'm just going to listen to them. Listen. I'm going to let them talk, And at a certain point, I'm just going to trust the word's going to be there. And that's really served me well. So in the mix of all this inadequacy I'm talking about, there are plenty of really shining moments like that.
I love that story because it has like the contrast of what we think apologetics needs to be or should be, and then what apologetics actually is, like how it actually shows you Jesus. Mm-hmm. And people just get confused. And I think I've seen it a lot where, even in myself, when I was in high school, I wanted to debate people, and I think I pushed people away a little bit because I wanted to be right. I didn't really listen.
Yeah.
Because I think it was hard for me to listen at that point because I have my own things I want to say, and if your points are, not correct, then why would I listen?
Right. Right. The whole enterprise just throws us on Christ for our complete reliance on Him, and that includes what do you do about regrets you have about, I argued too much or whatever that was. All that's forgiven, and I've come to understand that God He's always working. You handle that how you handle that, but He's always working. He's always bringing good out of things that we can't begin to understand how He ever could or what He's doing. But I'm very, very convinced of that. So, okay, I have another story. I don't know if it's too long.
No, go for it. Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Okay. So
please.
So I was knocking on doors and doing all of that really grueling work for me as an introvert. Knocking on doors like day after day after day after day.
Each interaction is just draining.
Not the first door. I would say the first 5 doors I knocked on or rang the doorbell, nobody answered. And then the next one, the door didn't open, but a voice from inside said, "Go away." So here I am starting the work. And so you did that kind of stuff. And there were some beautiful things that happened too. But did that for, way too many months. And I'm just, one day I drove my car in the evening to the spot where I'd left knocking on doors before that, and just looked at the next door, and after 1,000 doors or 2,000 doors, just could not get myself out of the car. I looked at that door, and I just couldn't do it. And so I started my car and drove back toward my little townhouse where I lived single and alone. But as I was driving home, I thought, you can't do this. You can't stop. Yeah. You have to. So I turned the car around, drove back to the same spot, looked at that door, the next door, and I just, same thing. Could not get myself out of the car. And that was a long night of, loud cries and tears. I just, could just see the failure coming. I just don't see how what I'm doing is going to ever become a church. I just don't see it. So I tell that part of the story so you can kind of have the drama, the background. So I just so look forward to starting church services. I had a few people gathered, in Bible study. So look forward to the first church service, because this I can do. I know how to do this. I know how to preach. This is what I'm prepared for. But I didn't have a place to hold services. And so, I mean, I had tried everything. I had tried funeral homes and VFW halls. And I almost had a guy convinced, I was an owner of a car dealership. I almost had him convinced to move the cars out of the showroom every Sunday.
Wow.
We're going to move the cars every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I mean, high school, everything, just tried every single thing. And meanwhile, I had created I think a series of 5 mailings. We did a phone campaign. We dialed, I had volunteers from a church some ways away, but we dialed the phone 10,000 times into my target area. And we had a list of 800 people, besides all the canvassing that I had done. And so we got a long prospect list, and I had all that ready to go, but it didn't have a place for church yet. So I called the mission board, and they're like, "Well, Mark, you're not really ready, and so we think maybe another year of just do what you're doing."
That is hard to hear.
I can't even tell you how hard to hear that was. I mean, I don't think I can do this for another year. Get in my car, and this was literally just to, I don't know, cool down, kind of wrap my mind around the new reality of where I was, right? So I drove down one of the main drags in Rockford, Illinois. I had never really driven this stretch before. And on the right side, there was a sign for something. Some of our students will know this. Rockford College. You've been there, Rockford College. So I turned into the driveway, and it was like a half mile, kind of a long drive into the campus of Rockford College. And then there on the left side was this strange, kind of angular shaped building. And outside it said Fisher Chapel. Okay. So I'm getting a little bit, my heart's pounding a little bit, and I park the car and I run inside. And I meet this lady whose name was Margene, who became a very good friend. But I told her who I was. And her jaw drops. And she said, "Okay, yesterday we got this new college president, and yesterday we had a meet and greet and let him say a few words about who he is and what he plans for the college. We had this little meet and greet for the new president. And at the very end, she said, what he said to us was, 'Hey, by the way, I've noticed that we have this chapel sitting here empty every Sunday morning. Couldn't we find some church to use it?'"
Mm.
Wow.
And so she runs off to the next building, and I'm left sitting in that space. And it was sitting in the round for, I think, 250 people. Beautiful walnut furniture. You can move around on the round platform in the middle. And off in the corner, it was a triangular-shaped room with a round platform in the middle. And off in the far corner, there is a tracker pipe organ. And beside that, there's a grand piano, and there's a sound system playing sweet, gentle music. And I'm just sitting in this space. The guy had been trying to get cars moved out of showrooms and and twisting the arms of funeral home directors. We're going to have New Life Lutheran Church meet at such and such funeral home. Right? all that desperation. And I'm just sitting there in the dark. And I would be what we would call a schwärmer if I told you that God spoke to me in that moment. So I won't say God spoke to me. Mm-hmm. But if he had, he would have said, what are you afraid of? I'm in this. So it was an incredible moment. And I'd find out later that if you were unchurched in Rockford and you got married, you probably got married at Fisher Chapel. Really? So all these unchurched people that had a connection to that place. And so that would be our little incubator, I suppose, for for 12 years of worshiping, and until we had a chance to build our own, and it was pretty spectacular. But I'm not going to forget how it really was, because how it really wasn't this triumph of Mark Paustian. It was like, oh, the Word of God is powerful, and when I'm weak, I'm strong, and yeah.
So in those moments of like little victories or even big victories like that, the inadequacy was still eating away at you, or were there like little reprieves at those times?
Yeah, how do you describe that? It's that the sufficiency of Christ just grows on you. You know, it just comes to mean more, more and more. Yeah, so from the outside, I think people, like brothers in ministry, thought, hey, it's golden. I mean, everything's prospering, and yeah. You have no idea what's really going on here. God has chosen the weakest servant he could have found, and doing a beautiful thing. So
That's unbelievable. And both those stories sound almost like they're taken straight out of a movie or something, you know,
Yeah,
like
you
just
can't
like the
make this
sheer,
stuff up.
exactly, just the sheer perfectness of it and timing of it all is crazy. And yeah, it's really clear to pick up on that theme that you talked about, you know, when, you know, I'm weak, then I'm strong. Because, I mean, both those moments had to be some of your lowest moments in your life for sure at that point, maybe even still now. And at those moments, then two of the greatest blessings that you had, God just kind of dropped into your lap. That's just astounding to me.
What do you think were some lessons that you like learned about yourself or just about ministry in that time that maybe have stuck with you? Maybe that's a tough one to answer.
yeah, I think I've. Yeah, what do I add to what I've said?
It's okay.
You gotta think about this some more.
Yeah, it's all right.
Maybe more specifically, since you weren't an extrovert and you really dreaded going up and doing door knocking, did you find a method that worked for you for that particular?
I was terrible at it.
Okay.
Terrible at it. Stay terrible at it.
Let's be honest. Well, maybe one of the lessons was that there are other people who are not terrible at it, and that there are those gifts around me in the ministry there, and I had to stay part of it, even though I was terrible at it. I couldn't just send these other people out to do it. So I go out with them, and we'd all do our thing at different neighborhoods, and
they all think that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I suppose you're supposed to take somebody with you, but I'm not going to take anybody with you. Why would I do that? Worst thing you want to do. I tell you another really short story, but it kind of captures a lot, and maybe it's a lesson, like you asked. So, some years later, I was about to baptize a baby, and I'm in the sacristy, just thinking about this child and this family and how I get to have this moment, and just thinking back, where did this child come from? Okay, so go back to the initial canvas. I already told you how that went. Well, one day I'm in my townhouse apartment after knocking on doors, and I had this door hanger that I would hang if somebody didn't answer the door, so I just leave a door hanger, right? So I'm in my apartment, and the phone rings, and it says, "Hi, I'm Jim. Got your thing on my door. I should probably get back to church. Do you want to come? You want to talk to me sometime?" Well, yeah, that's where I can actually do okay if we get that kind of a moment. I'd love to. Let's go talk. So I go over there and ring the doorbell, and this 18-year-old kid answers the door. And I said, "Hi, I'm here to see your dad." And he said, "Oh, okay." So he goes and gets his dad, and Dad is also named Jim, right? And so, "I'm Pastor Paustian, you called me." And he says, "No, I didn't." And it's this teenage boy had called me.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So, okay.
Didn't see that one coming.
Not the same thing I'd been expecting. Different. So we sat in outside room and talked. And what I was doing in those days was like a 20-minute presentation of God's Great Exchange. And so I did God's Great Exchange. And he was just lit up with excitement. He just couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it. I mean, God loves me. I mean, he took my sin and I get his righteousness, and that's it. And so what he says to me is, you got to tell my girlfriend. So, okay, when can we do this? Well, come back tomorrow. So I come back tomorrow. And it was just so funny because I'm telling Jill this same stuff, and Jim is sitting there like, wait till you hear this, you know. He's just so excited, and she hears the gospel and she believes too.
Wow,
and incredible. Okay, so now, how many years later? 15. I'm baptizing a baby, and I'm thinking, where'd this child come from? And this became a mantra in my church after that, because he was the son of the sister of the friend of the father of that kid. The son of the sister of the friend of the father of that 18-year-old boy. Which is one of the lessons, is that the gospel made its own path. It just made its own path. There's probably 25, 30 people that were part of that chain.
Yeah.
And none of them really thought about it. None of them really knew what part they had played. And so it's just one of the lessons of, you know, the gospel is real, and the Lord will see its way to people. And it's not about us so much, you know. And like I said before, he's just always working. He's just always working. Always doing good things, you know. And you don't get that many moments like that, of this aha, like that's what's been going on here.
Yeah.
So the gospel finding its own path is the way I like to think about that. In that the inadequacy of the minister, rather than getting in the way, is one of the great gifts and blessings. You know, if we did not have limitations, then it would be all about us, you know. But the fact that we have severe limitations is really what is teaching us to rely on him, speak his word, see what he's going to do, you know.
And it all started with one door hanger.
Yeah, I can still see it. It was a little blue piece of paper that said "because" in a big white "because" on the one fold of the big blue paper. I can still see it, and it was dumb. It was dumb.
It worked.
It worked. Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
What is it like having to leave all that behind when you accept a call then? Because, I mean, you see and forge all those relationships that you built over time, and then you accept a call to MLC, or maybe you served at another place before MLC after that call.
No, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, Connie and I, one time we're having breakfast. I didn't even have a call, but we just talked about the notion of leaving, and we just start crying. Not even having a call. And so what was it like? It was brutal. I mean, there are pastors, teachers. I don't mean to only talk about pastors, but that's what we're talking about for me. But who do that and say, I'll never go through that again, driving away from a place like that. So I thought I would do that for my whole life. I often thought of, you know, doctors who are general practitioners. They don't think I got to leave after 12 years. They're gonna help the babies be born, and they're gonna, you know, and see them through a lifetime and serve a family all the way up to the end for people. And that's how I thought of it. I thought, this is just what I'm going to do. I couldn't imagine any church taking me away from the church that was my own kind of blood, sweat, and tears.
Did your dad ever take a call?
My father served 2 places.
Okay.
Yeah, just 2. So
and were you alive during the time you moved?
He was in a town called Berry Mills, Wisconsin, and he served there. Actually, he took that church from his father, So there's a lot of longevity there of our family. When I was 6 months old, he took the call to St. Mark's, Watertown.
Okay.
And
So
that was the second place that he served. Yeah.
So there wasn't an emotional connection like there was.
No.
with-
Okay,
yeah.
I see what you're going for. No, there wasn't at all. Nothing I'd experienced before. So announcing the call was just. I've had some low moments. We don't have to get into those, but announcing that call was top 3. I mean, I can't even describe how low that is, especially when you see the reaction of people. And
Yeah.
so we had built this beautiful church, and I wasn't sure what the vision was after that. After I thought and prayed, I just wasn't sure what the next chapter was. Finally, I took the call to MLC in a moment of, I was just so torn, and finally, I think I was talking to Connie, and she said, "Are we going?" And I said, "Yeah." And hard to describe, hard to explain to anybody, including myself, why I said that. Why I said yes and took the call. There were reasons. I had thought that, I had prayed for a long time that Lord, if there's a better fit for me, you're clearly blessing what I'm doing in spite of me, but if there were a better fit, I would sure be thankful. And felt like it might be a better fit. I could imagine the academic life and, being with people a lot, which is good for me to be with people, but also having a certain amount of solitude. And I wrongly thought that coming here would be more of a chance to focus. I wouldn't be so scattered into lots of different, activities. It really wasn't true after all, but there are some family reasons that I thought it would be better for my family to be here. One was education for our kids. That was pretty big. There was also a health issue involved, and so. But when it came down to it, it was hard to explain to anybody why I would do what I'd done. The last service was gorgeous. It was Christmas Eve, and I baptized I don't know how many adults and a bunch of kids, and baptized a woman whose body was riddled with cancer, and
Wow.
baptized the first family of color into our church. And I've always thought, what an incredible thing that they were willing to do that, join a church as the pastor is leaving, an amazing thing. My father did not want me to come to MLC, and that was purely because he had a friend who was a professor at Watertown, Northwestern, back in the day, who just was not happy because he wasn't handling the Word of God near to the degree that a pastor does. And so my father thought that I would come here and be not happy about that, My dad was a gentle guy, not coercive, and I told him why or tried to explain to him why I was going. He changed his tune and he supported me completely, but that's how we thought about it. And that's why I've been so thankful to be here, and he was so thankful to know that was wrong, that the ministry here for me is very pastoral and no lack of handling God's word at all. In fact, maybe even more than I did as a pastor, when you factor in teaching Hebrew and so on. And that the work I get to do with students is intensely pastoral, and that's how I think of it too. And so, but yeah, it was quite a decision to make. And now that I'm here, almost 25 years, I don't really look back. I think so many opportunities have opened up for me in the time I've been here to travel and write and all kinds of stuff that I often say, if somebody had said to me at seminary, here's what your ministry will be, I would have just said, no way, I'm not going to. No way is that me. And so it's been a tremendous blessing to be here.
Did you feel like you were letting people down when you took that call?
100%.
And how do you How do you wrestle with it?
It's extremely painful. There was a guy at my church who I admired so much. I wanted to be like him. He was just such a talented guy. He was a president of a bank, and he used all his people skills to do good things. He was just crazy gifted. And I got very close to him. He was like my right arm, and we had every Tuesday we had a meeting at Perkins for breakfast, and he came to that meeting, and he was ticked off at me. He was just, Pastor, you have made a terrible mistake. And we had never been to a moment like that, he and I. And I can't even describe. Yeah. He would later apologize to me before I left. And years later, I saw him, and we talked about how he saw the providence and the blessing in my leaving. But yeah, that was difficult. Then I get to MLC, and one of the first weeks I'm sitting in church at St. Paul's here in Newham, just sitting in the pew, and my little girl, who was, I think, 4 years old, the younger one with the red hair, she starts crying during church. And why are you crying? She says, I wish Daddy was still my pastor. I'm like,
oh, man.
Are you trying to kill me, child? Because I'm grieving, and what have I done, and all those things. And then I wish Daddy was still my pastor. So, yeah, it's a hard transition, and something to think about when people do come here, especially out of the pastoral ministry, because that's where the big transition is,
Mm-hmm. Was it tough as an introvert having to re-meet everybody again, like when you get to the new place and having to like build all those relationships up from scratch, or was that something you kind of enjoyed doing?
Yeah, I can enjoy that very much, especially just given the kind of colleagues I have here. That part wasn't really difficult. I would say that it's so much people time just in my calling now that you can kind of, like I tell my students sometimes, I tell them, I love you guys, but you exhaust me.
Yeah.
I love you completely, but you completely exhaust me. Spending myself right now, as I teach. So.
Okay, I'm just picturing you. So you're taking this call, and your mind is, and your heart is in a knot over this, and basically the only person you have is your wife, right?
In what way? What do you mean the only person?
Well, I mean, she's coming with you.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
And so I guess...
Yep, you get in a car and off you go, and
right.
This is it.
Like, you're not letting her down, per se.
Yeah.
But everybody else around you is like you feel pressure, almost.
Yeah.
From just interactions with them, because there's that tension, I guess.
Yeah, the day I announced the call, this is so terrible to think back on. There's a lot of details here why I had to announce the Sunday I did. It had to be that Sunday. Well, we had a friendship Sunday planned, so people bring their friends to church, and then the pastor announces that he's leaving, and everybody's crying. Yeah. So, yay! and we also had plans. Half the church was going to got on buses and took buses to a Reformation rally, some place, I forget the details, but it was a big event. And so I got to spend the next, hours and hours and hours with these people.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was... Thanks for making me remember these things, guys.
I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe more positive. How was your wife there for you in that time?
None of us should take for granted what it means that someone is still willing to follow their husband someplace. Her spirit that said, you're going to decide this, and I'm in. We had long conversations. It was on me to decide for the best of my family. and my children. But yeah, what can you say?
So you said when you first started this call, you were single. Is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay.
the exploratory mission.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you met her at this place.
Yeah, I met her. Long story short, her brother was staying with me because he was vicaring at a church nearby, and I had a big old house. And met her through him, and basically when he moved out, she moved in. Essentially, is how it happened. We were married, let's say, 3 months, 2 months, and we were at a missionaries conference, and I keep trying to scratch my ear, and I hit the
You're good.
You can take off the headphone if you want. It's
No,
fine.
I'm good. Woke up in the morning with her having a rash from head to toe, and this was the beginning of a really quite nightmarish journey. She had lupus, but it would take, I think, 3 times in the hospital to figure this out, and so this woman I married, her hair fell out, and she was on 100 milligrams of steroids and crying all the time, and pretty much unrecognizable.
Wow.
And she would have something in her forehead called neuralgia, I think, where she would just have this stabbing pain. It would happen, I don't know, 3-4 times a day. I could be out by the mailbox by the road and hear this woman screaming. And so I would run into the house and hug her, and we had her bed downstairs, and lift her feet over the side of the bed. And it was the hardest time in my professional life too, just being where we were with this exploratory mission. And this woman had become this sad creature, really, really suffering, like she would have been happy to die. It was really, really, really rough. And so I think that's where I, more than any time, kind of saw her quality, So I read about lupus, and you should not, when someone gets sick that you love, don't read things that are more than 3 years old, So I thought she had maybe 10 years to live, and that was going to be it. And we'd have 10 years living that way, the way we were, and that would be it. And so it was another really traumatic time in life, really, just enormously difficult. But saw her quality. This is a woman of profound faith, and so by the grace of God, God would be good if He hadn't made her get better. But having kids was like, no, that's not going to happen. That's how it looked, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a long, long journey with some real nightmarish parts of it. But I would say maybe 2 years later, I think it's about 2 years, that got the green light. Go ahead and have kids. And so...
Oh, what a blessing.
Yeah, life... how life could have been and how life was. And she kind of came back to me, and her joy came back, and she's a beautiful spirit and a beautiful person. And I said before, I'm at a point in life of just being completely beyond grateful. And it's her, it's my son-in-law, you guys have heard me talk about, who became a Christian as he and I got a chance to know each other. And my daughter, who had a lot of pain for a while, she's better and has a beautiful granddaughter. Our granddaughter is this happy little human, and it's just changing our life, just fills you up. And so when I have my morning devotion, this morning, actually, I listen to usually 5 or 6 songs every morning, and I've got my little playlist. But lately I've settled on C.C. Winans' version of Goodness of God. And, oof.
It's a fantastic song.
All my life you've been faithful. In that line, I live my life in the goodness of God. And yeah, it just knocks me out. Knocks me out. think of this family, and think of what I get to do here, which is like what I've been smart enough to design this call, what I've been smart enough to design. I'm going to teach communication and apologetics and homiletics and Hebrew and yes, please, but who would have even thought of it, right? So I'm incredibly grateful.
How did going through all that in the moment with your wife and going through that low streak, how did that impact your ministry in the present time when it was happening?
Oh, that's a good question. They're all good questions. So what I would have to say is that if I was inadequate in general, well, now I am completely useless as a pastor when we went through that. Because, I showed up on Sunday and did my thing, and that remained very meaningful. What's really interesting is that those days are when my mission busted out more than any other time. So let that sink in. We think it's all about our native ability. We think it, in our heart of hearts, it's really us that's doing all this stuff. Come on, face it, in our heart of hearts, we really do think that. And I just have in my head this picture of a time when I just was useless, and that's when we thrived. So what are you going to do with that?
So you were doing less work at that time,
100%.
and so was anybody
Where are these people coming from?
Was anybody picking up the slack, or it was just
No.
people were coming in?
No, nobody's picking up the slack.
I don't know how big your core group was, or how people was there support for that, or no?
Yeah, across I want to say 12 years of that mission work, it was going from like 20, 30 to about 100 by the end, average Sunday attendance. But that time of her being sick was just one of the big bumps. I'm going to say maybe from 30 to 50, I'm not sure. But, which doesn't sound like much, but when you think about huge,
Just a startup.
church operations, but yeah, this was a startup. So it's another one of the big lessons. And the other lesson, I guess, as a pastor was, I think there had been some frustration on my part as you're trying to create this church and you have in your head what its program should look like, what its activity should look like. And so I found myself promoting programs and, the same dozen people come to everything, right? And always a kind of frustration. I have to say, if I'm totally honest, some frustration with my people. Like, why don't you care about this stuff? Like, why aren't more people coming to this or that thing? And then kind of get sick. And the way I think about that is, boy, all these things you thought the church should be, and then put in front of God's people a real need, a legitimate need. Happened to be their pastor and his wife. And they just blew me away. Blew me away with their love and faithfulness and over the top energy and so there's a I don't know how to process that. If I were in that position again, how would I process the thought of, is this going to be about the programs I think we should have, and get frustrated that people don't agree with me?
Yeah.
Or can we think about unleashing the love of God's people with the real need that is around us, So that was very interesting to kind of process that too. I think that maybe had something to do with why it was such a good time for my mission. I don't know.
There's all the stories that you told today just seem so incredible. Talk about seeing the hand of God and everything that happens. It's just powerful.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, thanks for listening. I feel like I've talked me, talking about myself.
That's kind of the point of the podcast.
We kind of like that. But yeah, I was thinking, how did all those experiences that you had in your previous church, how did that help prepare you more for coming to MLC afterwards?
Or did it? Maybe you didn't.
Well, I think that as I described my struggles as a young person with just communicating, that the time in the parish, those 12 and a half years, it's just a lot of what I actually think about people and what they need and how to relate to them. I think that has continued to inform what I do here. So that'd be a simple answer, but I think about that set of experiences all the time. And yeah, I'm not sure where else to go with that.
But when you say communicating, are you talking about with individuals or to your congregation?
I think I mean more individuals.
Okay.
Yeah. I often think about with people of your gentleman's age that, your gifts are clearly emerging and they're considerable and they're enjoyable to get to see. I think that probably you yourself don't really completely know what they are.
For sure. Yeah.
And that let the prefrontal cortex keep cooking for a couple of years, couple of years and 3-4 more years. And the kind of gifts that will continue to emerge through that are you just can't even really know. And so I think that for me at seminary is when I discovered that gifts that were emerging for communicating. And I mean, in particular for communicating the gospel. I had interesting experiences preaching for the first time at seminary where I just kind of discovered I can put a shine in people's eyes. I hope it doesn't sound bad to say that, but I just
no.
It's a gift from God.
Preached to the first time to the whole student body at seminary, all future preachers, and the faculty, all preachers, and that was really a huge moment for me to just suddenly, from out of nowhere, I found myself connecting with an audience in a way that was just a sweet spot. And it was just, holy cow, that was beautiful. That was really, more please. And my point is I didn't know till that moment that I had anything going on whatsoever. I was in high school, college, I was pretty much invisible. I wasn't anybody. People say, you'll be a professor someday. No one ever said that. No one ever said that. But so, I forget the original question I'm reacting to. But I think I discovered a real love for communicating the gospel. That has kind of been the continuity between the exploratory mission and being here. I hope it doesn't sound braggy.
No,
absolutely.
I just love talking about Jesus. I just do. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to become identity in a strange way. Knowing Christ is my whole identity, and I don't want communicating Him to be a strange little thing. But I would just have to say it is the greatest joy in life to speak about Jesus and to realize that, or to at least believe or think in that moment that you're getting it across. It's reaching. And again, I forget what question prompted this little aside, but
the difference between individual and the
yeah. So it is kind of both. Growing in my ability across a lifetime of doing the individual communicating.
When people think of communication, I think we think of the speaking part, but can you maybe speak more about what goes on when you're not speaking? Does that make any sense?
Say it again or rephrase.
The listening aspect of communication. I know you talked about it a little bit, how you're just naturally a good listener.
Your words.
My words?
Yeah.
I mean, you said that it came naturally to you to listen to this young woman at that party.
Okay, that way.
But I don't know. I think many times we forget that, and we don't.
I to make myself happy, I looked at just an hour ago. I looked at or maybe 2 hours ago, looked at my course list for the next semester, and I see both of you gentlemen are in my communication class.
Oh, IPC.
Yeah,
yes.
You're both in
sweet.
there. And so you're gonna find out just how important I think listening is. Yeah, yeah, it's huge.
Well, because I've heard it said, this might have been something that Aaron Wakeman said, but if I'm going to counsel somebody and I have an hour, I'm going to listen to them for 55 minutes so I can decide how I want to counsel them for the last 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that hit me. And I don't think I've ever looked at conversation the same after that.
Yeah, I've said that exact same.
Maybe it came from you. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, what I've been pushing really hard in communication lately, IPC, is two big ideas. One is curiosity, and the other is high regard. Been just hitting those really hard. So both have a very strong biblical warrant behind them, looking not to your own interest, but to the interests of others and so on. And high regard, thinking of others as more important and better than you are. I just think that goes a long way. Genuine curiosity. That is to say, there's no one I can't learn from. There's no boring person. I always say in IPC, there's no boring person. And to nurture this, that I want to know your story, and I want to know where you come from and how you come to think the way you think and who you are and what this means, and all this do I want to know. And that's curiosity. And which is what's behind really, really attending to people, really learning what it means to give someone your full attention, like it's just you and this person in the world, right? But we can add on top of the curiosity then is the high regard piece, to honor others above yourself, Scripture says. And that's, by the way, what I get from you two. You were sitting down and you were showing curiosity and high regard this whole time. That you didn't want to do this is curiosity.
It's a lot of fun.
High regard.
Yeah.
But I think what I would say to my young self, who really struggle with communication, that's what I would say. Learn to find people interesting.
And when you say curiosity, is curiosity listening to ask questions, or just actively listening?
It's actively listening, which includes questions, which includes asking powerful questions, powerful open questions. Yeah.
Is that a skill, like learning to ask good questions?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something you acquire over time. What are the good questions? I think it does call on some wisdom to ask the right question at the right time. So, like Sam Chan is a guy who writes about evangelism, and he talks about there being like a front porch and a backyard. So the front porch conversation, we talked about this. The front porch is just your interests and where you've been in life. Tell me your story, all of that. The backyard conversation is, like not everybody gets into the backyard. So the backyard conversation is when you're willing to go deeper with somebody. And this is more questions like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What do you find yourself living for? And what's going to happen when that's gone? And some questions like, so something you care deeply about is not in your control. What does that do to you? Tell me. So these are questions that border on intrusive potentially, but I really want to know. And so I think built on, maybe that's part, I haven't thought about it this way, maybe that's part of where the high regard comes in, is if I think the world of you. I'm asking this question because you're that important, that maybe the questions can get real like that.
Where does a conversation about religion or about Jesus, I guess, fit into that, the front porch backyard?
I don't know. I think maybe the front porch can be preliminary. I want to know where you've been in life, maybe your spiritual journey, whatever. I think the backyard gets down to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So you can't have that conversation on the front porch. It just looks different.
Well, I'm just, having that conversation, you ought to kind of realize that you've just gone to the most intimate, vulnerable thing there is.
Mm.
You should know that you've done that, right? So you wouldn't want it to be too much too soon, that kind of thing. But
Are there any common mistakes that you see people making in communication that would be good to avoid, maybe specifically for ministry or even just in day-to-day life?
yeah, common mistake. And, I think it's in the same vein we've been talking about. It's just to throw a lot of words at things that you don't understand. You throw words at things that you haven't they haven't really taken the time. I often say, I'm probably quoting somebody, that my words are weak when they come from a shallow understanding of what's in front of me. My words are weak when they come from a shallow understanding. And so maybe that's one of the mistakes, is go right to what do I have to say about this, and not nearly enough energy spent on, I want to understand this person. I want to understand this person. And for me, this is another IPC thing. It just takes so much pressure off. With the pressure, what do I say? I just don't really tend to feel that much anymore, because I'm going to say instead, I'm going to understand this as well as I can. I'm going to ask my questions. I'm going to listen. I'm going to see you, going to hear you, the best of my ability, and see if the words aren't given to me. Not in some weird way, but we all have the Word of God stored up in our hearts, and I can draw on that. But let it be that before I do that, I'm repeating myself now, but really made the effort to see you and understand you and know your story and where you come from and what it means.
Do you think it's ever okay after you hear someone's story and after they unload everything on you that they're going through, is it okay maybe at times to say, I don't have the words right now? Obviously you want to share with them the love of the gospel, but I don't know, I feel like sometimes when people unload that much on you, it leaves you shell-shocked, and I'm just curious.
It's hard to know where to go, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you say to someone, oof, I don't even know what to say to you right now. I'm just really glad you told me. I'm honored by what you would share with me.
Acknowledge the sacrifice they
Yeah,
made.
I think so. I think about the gospel in those moments as, I don't want to say less is more. I'm not going to withhold from you the simple sweetness of the way God loves you and how I know that for sure, and the promises that He holds out to you. I don't want to withhold any of that. I just don't want to make it a theological treatise. Sometimes I think in terms of words instead of empathy. I don't want to offer words instead of empathy, because what can come along with words spoken instead of empathy is all kinds of things you didn't mean to say. Certain relational messages that become, well, you didn't mean to say, but a person got this message. Like in class we talk about, all things work for the good of those who love God, which is a beautiful verse, and there's a way to apply that. But if I just see your struggle and slap that verse on you, then you're going to say, you think I don't know that? You think I should be happy? Like, I don't know what you're saying to me. And so the words themselves are wonderful. I probably would think of maybe other verses first for comforting someone who's struggling. But really it is words instead of empathy that can go so wrong, and so I think the fact that I would just sit in that space with you for a while, sit in that space, and then say my piece at some point, not withholding the gospel from you, but.
What does it look like to sit in that space with somebody? Like you just sit quietly with them, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the words kind of come slow, and there can be long pauses, and
okay,
it's quiet.
Yeah.
And speak gentle things and ask gentle questions. I don't know. I think the main thing is that we would get comfortable with that. And
sitting in the space with somebody, getting comfortable with that.
Comfortable with the fact that you maybe can't fix this person. And, we talked a lot about inadequacy. That was one of the surprises of my ministry, I would say, was all the things I was involved in with people in their struggles, where there just wasn't a thing I was going to be able to do that would make the practical circumstances any better. And a woman who, she was an athlete and she was a swimmer in Olympic aspirations, and then she gets this disease, which is a creeping pain through her body, and it was just moving along her legs and arms, and she would report to me how far the pain had proceeded, and the doctors say, this is it, it's not going to take your life. It's just not going to get any better, right? And so that's what I mean, situations where how do I make this better?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you can't. I'm just thinking that, as I was saying, what surprised me about the ministry was how often I'd be in a situation that would be that kind of inadequacy. Like, I think a man in his agony is a man saying, someone just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So you're in situations where there isn't a simple, clear, straightforward answer to that, right? Now, this woman, it was hard. It was really, really hard. I would also say that you could see God doing something very powerful in her. And that was, as she slowly loses and lets go of the dream she had for her life, that she really did come into, call it a higher dream, a better dream, the dream of knowing Christ really, really well, and the dream of reflecting Him in her circumstances. And boy, did she dream of heaven, So God can still do His powerful things in those shattered dreams, and our role doesn't change. It's still to portray Christ to these people and speak Him into their lives and point to Him and so on. It's just so we were talking about just sitting in that space with her, and not get in there, throw a few words, get out. That's what I was saying about I have to learn to become comfortable. I have to be okay with being with her, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm thinking, as a guy, I want to know what someone needs and be able to do it, to have a solution right away. And that almost sounds not painful, just very difficult to just have to sit there. And you can't really do anything. All you have to do is just be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the only way you can get better at that probably is just to do it.
Yeah, you be there, offer connection,
I've
pray.
heard that, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
I heard that something you can do for a friend when they're having a hard day is just go over and maybe make them a meal and watch a movie with them, and not try to fix it, but just show that you care
Mm-hmm.
in a way that isn't trying to fix it, which I think is beautiful, but also sometimes hard to do. Does that make any sense? Sorry.
It does. Total.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't overgeneralize communication and stuff like that. I think it's so individualized. Like in a moment like that, I'm just thinking, like, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this. I don't know if you can go into a conversation with like a preordained idea of how it's going to go. Like, I feel like it's kind of, because you want to talk with them, you want to ask them what's going on, you want to hear their story, seek to understand. And then would you say everything after that, it's reactionary to what happens with that conversation?
Yeah, I would say so.
Oh, yeah.
That's why one of the things I want to have and want my students to have, I sometimes say it, you've heard me say it, more than 45 seconds of things to say about the gospel, you know. And it can't be just this little canned message I got in my back pocket, you know. Some people are in situations where they're going to need to be overwhelmed by it. And so having more than 45 seconds of things to say about what it means that God took flesh and lived here, you know? I think about Jesus on the cross, and more of course the question is, why would you do this? Like, why in the world would you do this? What kind of love is this? Sometimes I find myself thinking lately, like, how did you do it? Like, how did you do that? How do you endure when it's in your power to stop it? I don't understand how he did it, you know. And I think a big part of my devotional life recently, last 6 months, what I just think a lot about is how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ. And I think about that Ephesians 3 business, that is Paul saying, I pray that you would know this thing that's beyond knowing. And you can't know it, but I pray that you would, in the Spirit, have the power to grasp it. You who are rooted in this love. You and I have been baptized into it, you know. But I pray that you would know it, how wide and long and high and deep. Because he says this would fill you. This would fill you. And so I think a lot about lately in my devotional life. I think about that verse, and the prayer is that by the Spirit, by these words, and the power in these words, that love would become more real to me. More real than all my regrets. More real than my inadequacies that we talked a lot about. More real than my idols and all their threats and promises. Like the idol of what people think. You know, more real than my regrets because they're thrown into God's ocean of forgetfulness, and more real than my idols because for me to live is Christ. Period, you know. And then more real to me than future sorrows that I can imagine, kind of conjure up, you know, because what's real is his promise to never leave me or forsake me, and his promise to work everything for my good. That's what's real, you know. And so I think you ask about a ministry, what I'm learning more and more is and it's been I think maybe a year and a half since I can say I haven't missed one of these mornings in my devotional time, that my day has to begin in the pursuit of him. My day begins in the pursuit of Jesus, and a lot of music, a lot of songs. I'm up as early as I need to be to get to do that, 4 or 5 songs. And then I think through these things, that King of the universe is my brother, and the King of the universe is my friend. And I am a child of the Most High God. And I'm reconciled to him body and soul, and My death is a sleep from which I will wake to Him. And living life in pursuit of Him and learning how to find the fullness that is in how wide and long and high and deep is part of how I can say that I'm really grateful. And so I would say the mistake in ministry would be to immerse yourself in all the activity, but not as a man or woman in pursuit of Christ in a very, very real way. I just did a webinar with the network, Cross-Train Network. It was on difficult conversations, and this came up that for me to handle conflict well, the problem with conflict is it's always going to want to show you something. This conflict we're having is somehow about me. It's somehow something I don't want to see, but it's about me. And it will always kind of touch on some kind of vulnerability. It just does.
Yeah.
I don't want to see myself as whatever. And so I have to develop the capability of drawing on that well of Christ. So that when I approach even difficult situations or difficult conversations, it really can be, hey, I know who I am, and I'm not fragile, and I'm not vulnerable, and nothing can happen to me in this conflict that is going to surprise me, as far as what it shows me about me. But I'm not fragile, I'm not vulnerable, I know who I am, and nothing can touch it. I think that's the kind of resiliency in Christian identity that we need for ministry, not just for the conflict, but that's just a good case in point when we find ourselves really super tested, right? But to pursue Jesus in a devotional kind of living, and finding the fullness in Christian identity, and that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
Is this conflict that you maybe are anticipating that you are going into, or something that is just happening of its own accord?
Sometimes it's something ongoing.
Okay.
That's going to mess with you and call up your dark side and all those kinds of things, But I can always get back to my grounding.
So what are the things that you keep in mind when you're going through one of those times? Because you can't control what the other person does or the other party does, but you can control what you do, how you look at it.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that if I have that resiliency of Christian identity, then all the best responses to a conflict are available to me. It's not that I don't know, in conflict, you just gotta learn to be so suspicious of yourself in conflict.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I cast myself in the best possible light in my mind, and I cast you as the devil, and I ascribe all kinds of terrible motives to you, and all that comes out of the lack of resiliency in Christian identity. But when I'm in the right place and in the right space, then what I can bring to conflict, two main things. One is gentleness, which is that we're in a conflict and I can tell it just got personal or whatever, that I can pull back from whatever the issue is and say to myself, how can I make this safe? I can put the issue aside and prioritize a relationship, and how can I make this safe? I can, by respecting you, by listening to you, by confirming you, by apologizing to you, all these things I can do to get back to safe. And once we're safe again, once we're, we've de-escalated all those feelings, and once we're as far back to goodwill as we can be, then here's one of our themes. Then I'm going to enter the issue with way more curiosity than before. Mm-hmm. Curiosity has a special application here. There's just all kinds of stuff. I think the biggest mistake we make in conflict is when we assume we know everything there is to know. And I can think of a dozen things we probably don't know when we're in conflict with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're going to approach this without resiliency, you know, what happens then is people who, it's just a fragile ego that needs protecting. And they get locked in to their story. Their story is the story. And their intentions were pure and yours were horrible. And they just get locked in to those perspectives in conflict. But a little bit of Christian resiliency, you know, I can get back to make it safe and be curious.
And so what do you do when, you know, you have that in mind, but you can tell the other person isn't, maybe doesn't have the same mind or is kind of stuck in a mental loop? How do you go about that? Are you able to tell them, or? Well,
again, it's probably because their ego has become involved and it's vulnerable, and
right.
They don't want to have to see themselves in certain ways, and that's the whole point of trying to make it safe.
Is there a way forward then in that case, or is it kind of just?
Yeah, it's it's a lot of things. So years ago, I had a student, and we weren't getting along, and he was in a preaching class, and so he had a lot at stake. Talk about vulnerability, the vulnerability of, am I good at this or whatever? So he had a lot going on, and so he was constantly pouting or yelling at me, or he'd walk away he'd just walk away from me, raise his voice, all these kinds of things, and so. Yeah, that's when I kind of learned this whole idea of stop trying to get messages across to him, you know, and another thing, Joe, not his name, but and another thing, and stop trying to get your message across. You pull back from all of that and say, for example, can we take a break here? Can we just take a beat, you know, and we're going to soften way down as one, and I'm going to apologize sincerely. Like, I just raised my voice to you. You didn't deserve that. I hope you can forgive me. I'm going to confirm this person. I see how hard you're working. I'm going to acknowledge the feelings that are there. You know, I know this is frustrating. I don't blame you one bit. I'm going to signal my respect, because respect is like air. When it's not there, nothing else matters, right? I'm going to signal that. Can I let him know he's heard? With the skills that you guys will learn in class next semester. But, okay, chapel, you got your chapel coming up in, 10 days, and I know that the pressure's mounting. You're really worried about this. So I'll use those listening skills. A shared purpose is one. I promise you we're going to get you to a thrilling experience in the pulpit, I promise. I'll do everything in my power. So we're going to share a purpose. And so there's a whole range of things that we can do to get back to safety, get back to. And then when we're ready, as well as you can, humanly speaking, we're back to that. Things are okay. Now let's talk about this. Now that's the curiosity part. Mm-hmm. Clearly we're looking at this text in two different ways, you and I. Let's go back. But the curiosity is, that's a whole range of things too. It's like, what is that vulnerability? I don't know what the vulnerability is. Or I know some dominant feelings here. I don't know all the feelings in this. I don't know what your story is. The story that would make this make sense. And on I could go. There's just a lot of things that feed the notion that maybe I don't know everything I need to know to resolve this conflict. Maybe I should spend some time just trying to understand.
How much of your communication approach and knowledge has just come from situations like that, and maybe even from, I don't want to go as far to say moments of failure, but maybe instances where you didn't handle things as well as you would have liked in the moment?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot of things. I said before, I have always had a lifelong fascination with communication, coming out of not sufficiency but inadequacy, and as I said, a deep hunger to do this well, a deep hunger to connect with people. So there's a lot of things that I think have gone into whatever learning I have. One is failure, sure. One is struggle. Other is just reading books and pursuing degrees, and other is watching the people I really admire for how they do it and do it naturally, you know. So a lifelong fascination of just, I want to know what this is to connect.
Yeah.
I want to know what this is to relate and communicate well. So that's, you know, how to answer where does this come from. I have lived my life with a deep need to know. Need to know these things.
Because what happens if you don't know?
Maybe
that's an impossible question.
No.
Do you just feel inadequate then? Is it the...
I don't know, missed opportunities, disconnection with people. You know, when you learn two things, really attend to people. We said that before. The second thing interesting is when you actually like people. You like them and you're attending to them.
Like you choose to like them?
I think you
Almost.
can, you know, can you? I thought for a while that, well, no, Jesus wants us to love our neighbor. He doesn't say to like them. How can you like somebody you don't?
Yeah.
And I think there are limitations maybe, but I really can actually think about this person and what I'm enjoying about them. You know?
What if you're not enjoying anything about them?
Try to find something. I mean, people are cool. People are amazing. Like I said before, there's no boring person. I'm the one maybe not asking the right question. But there's no not fascinating person. I think I can kind of, with some thought and some humility, get to, there's something likable about this person, right? Anyway, what I was getting to was the combination of attending really well to someone that you like makes an incredible connection possible. The brain science is all over this. Like if you attend and like someone, then you can actually get in sync in conversation. And micro expressions on your faces show up at the same time. All kinds of crazy stuff is happening.
That's so cool.
Under these two circumstances. And by the way, it can never happen asynchronously.
What if you're faking it though? Can you fake liking somebody and it doesn't work?
No.
And because they can tell, almost like
Even if they can, you can. You know. And so the reason I went into that was, what if I don't communicate well? That's another thing where if I haven't enjoyed that with somebody, real connection, and if it's been a long time, then I'm going to start to really sink into some real sadness, you know, because connecting to people is so tied to thriving. You know, we're relational creatures. We're not made to be alone, and so that'd be one way to kind of think about that. For me, is if I'm not communicating well, I'm not connecting with anybody, and that's a hard place to be. It just is.
What's that process like for you? Because without a doubt, I'm sure in your ministry you've had conversations that didn't go as well as you wanted.
Of course.
So what's that like afterwards? Like, are you very hard on yourself after that happens? Do you just throw it all on God and go to God? I'm just curious.
No, personally, I would say I'm pretty hard on myself. Tend to internalize bad connections and like, yeah, what's wrong with you? You know, that's why I can't say enough about the devotional life, because the devotional life, the first at least half hour every single day, is where I come back to myself and come back to what I know. Right. So the prayer every morning goes like this, every single morning. Lord, things will happen to me today, some that I can control, most I cannot. So when an event occurs, it goes like this. Most I cannot, but you are sovereign, Lord. Nothing can happen to me today that you don't already know about. So when an event occurs, help me to capture my thoughts in your promise that you will never leave me or forsake me, and your promise that you're working all things, even this event, for my good. And let these promises bring me feelings of love and joy and peace that my behavior could honor you. And so every morning I can kind of come back to this. And more and more lately I've been thinking about that line, some I can control, most I cannot. And,
Yeah.
think about, the way I teach my classes, I've surrendered a lot of control. Like in ACR, it's going to be a good class if you guys are good. Because I really... So there's a lot that I can't control. And how my stuff will land on people and where the conversation will go, all that's beyond my control. When I go to conferences, I've been thinking about this a lot. So much is not in my control. But you are sovereign, Lord. It's not beyond your control. So when events occur, help me capture my thoughts in your promises. And the fact that being at this for a year and a half now, or however long it's been, you get, I don't want to say better. you become more resilient. You really, really do. And so a conversation you asked about, it goes badly and I didn't connect very well. Okay, that happens. But I'm becoming much more able to, in that moment, to align myself with, now what's true here, though? What is true? And what's true is God is always working good things. And what's true is nothing touches my identity. Nothing. And I'm far more able to say at this stage in my life about the things that I'm doing out there in Synod and here on this campus. I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm gonna make the best contribution I can. But what God does with it, it's really not my concern. And I'm not saying I'm all the way there, but I'm much more able to say that because it's just true.
Yeah.
There's also got to be an element of it too. Us as humans, we don't know the effect that our words have on people. So I'm sure that there's been moments in all of our lives where we've had conversations with people where maybe we ourselves thought it went badly, but maybe that person
Absolutely.
got way more out of it than they thought they would.
100%.
And vice versa. I'm sure there's been times where you thought that you were on your game, so to speak, and then went completely over the person's head. So,
yep, this just isn't about us. God is always doing his things, and when I fail, that's really a nice opportunity to give glory to God. When I can just show that I'm actually okay. It's interesting that when I go to a conference and do a shtick, and there's a buzz in the room how awesome it was. You know what? That feels good for about 5 minutes, and then it messes with my head.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And whenever that happens, I think, there's only one really uncomplicated joy I know. That's the forgiveness of sins. And what I have here, the buzz in a conference, that's nothing compared to that.
Uncomplicated joy.
It is.
I like that.
It doesn't mess with your head. You're forgiven. It doesn't mess with you.
Cool.
And when a conference goes badly, I want to crawl in a hole. I just think, okay, that hurts for 5 minutes, and then
Yep.
and then I'm going to say, I want to tell people it just isn't what you think, either failing or succeeding. It just isn't what you think. If I want to crawl into a hole, then what I'm going to think to myself is, come on, Mark, what do you really want? Is it to be a buzz in a conference and everybody says you're awesome? No. I actually don't like that. What do I really want? What I really want is just For me to live as Christ, that's what I really want. And if a disappointment in a strange way puts me in touch with that, by the time I'm driving home and I'm dealing with this, oh, that stunk, right? Come on, Mark, what do you really want? By the time I get home, I'm pretty okay. Because, what's true? What's true? What's true is God is always working, and nothing touches who you are to Him, and nothing can happen in these things we're given to do that you can't handle with Him. Nothing. And so, I think whatever the theme of this conversation is, one is that is the power of a devotional life. It's just, it just has been so good that it feels like a brag. It's just, it's not. It's something that comes out of an inadequacy that I can't live life without this. I can't do it.
I love the prayer that you have, because it's simple, yet it speaks to specific things in your mind that you need to remind yourself of it every day. Has that always been something that's part of your devotional life, like finding a specific prayer or crafting one?
Yeah, that's part of, I'm in a cross-trained network of pastors, and that's where I get that prayer from. So it's been part of me for, like I said, same year and a half I've been doing this network that I'm in.
Do you think you'll have to, there'll be a point where you modify the prayer, or
I was just thinking that
a new
today,
prayer?
Actually. I was thinking about the prayer does kind of make you think, okay, bad things will happen to me today. What will I do when they happen? I've been thinking just today that, one of my things is I'm a little bit tired as a 63-year-old guy, and sometimes I find myself looking ahead too much of being done, right? And I've been thinking more, don't do that. Don't do that, because this is all going to go away. Talking about my life and responsibilities and people asking me to do things and, and sin, that's all going to go away. And when it does, I'll probably be sad about it, so don't wish these days away. Today, I said this morning to myself in my prayer, I'm going to be in front of people, I'm going to be with people, I'm going to be encountering people, and let me make the most of those opportunities and not just want to fast forward my life in some ways, So that's been how to modify that prayer, and to also say, Lord, you're going to bring people my way today, and there are no accidents in that, and let me be present with them, and my great love for speaking of you, Jesus. Open up those moments. So one prayer can't last probably through decades of life. So I've been thinking about that.
We've appreciated everything that you've had to say. I know as an introvert, you're probably just looking to get home after a long day. But one more question.
Of course.
Maybe if you already touched on it, just let us know. But what do you think is something that God is teaching you right now in the season of your life?
Yeah, something God is teaching me. I don't know. Life is worth living. I don't know. He's teaching me. Gratitude is not a should. I should be more grateful. It's something that the time I spend pursuing Him and His Word is just doing for me. It's just working in me.
I should.
I can't think. You can't convince me God has been kinder to anybody on this planet than me. And I think that God is teaching me that. Hey, everybody, listen to "Goodness of God" by C.C. Winans. All my life, you've been faithful. All my life.
It's going to be the most listened to song on Spotify.
There's a version I used to listen to in my morning by Jen Johnson, more of a concert version. But I recently turned to CC Winans, and I'm liking that better. So,
Would you say that you're grateful every day, or it's like
Yes.
especially with your devotional life? I'm sure it's probably
Yes.
easier to be grateful every day.
yes, I can say that. I can say that the way I've said it in IPC a couple times is I feel like I owe it to you guys to come to class with a full heart. And I've learned how to get to that.
Mm.
Yeah. Used to be I wake up in the morning and thoughts just would attack me. Thoughts would just attack me, and I got to push those back and reclaim the gospel every single morning, which is wonderful. It's been a lot of years that way. But I wake up in the morning now and thoughts don't attack me. In fact, I got a, what do you call it? This new kind of coffee machine, Ness.
I'm sorry, I'm not
I
a
don't drink
coffee
coffee. I'm
drinker.
sorry. I was thinking Keurig, but then he said no. And I was like, I don't know.
It's above a Keurig. Why am I blanking on this? Maybe I'm really that tired.
It's like a Nest, is it Nesco or something? Like that?
Nest. We can edit this out.
Yeah, we can.
Anyway, it makes a really amazing cup of coffee, and it's like a little machine. And so I get up in the morning and I've got that first cup of coffee with Jesus, and I'm gonna I light my candle, which is lame, but I light a candle, and this is setting this time apart as separate and special. Mm-hmm. And then 4 or 5 songs. I got others I could talk about, and then whatever way I have engaging scripture, read a commentary. If I got a chapel coming up, I'll read commentaries or whatever it is. The next chapter in Romans or John or Psalms or whatever. It always just starts with gratitude. Like I always say to myself, I'm in this space just to enjoy my God. I'm not going to think about my day yet. I'm not going to be about that. It's just going to be, I'm just sitting in this place to enjoy Him. And I'm so grateful I get to do that. And as I've said, the King of the universe is my brother, and the King of the universe is my friend. And so, yes, the answer is yes. God is helping me to get to gratitude in a regular way, daily. Now, the day goes on and stuff happens, and I'm not telling you I'm grateful through all this stuff that happens. Mm-hmm. I'm working on that. But daily get that hit of serotonin and endorphins. Gratitude is just such a good thing. It really is the antidote to anxiety.
Yeah.
It really is. So, yeah.
Thank you for saying that it doesn't last the whole day, because there are definitely days where I'm like, man, I feel like I should be grateful, but I'm just not happy right now. I'm not having a good time.
It's a never-ending struggle, I think, for sure.
I often say there's no path out of the struggle. There's only the promise of Jesus to meet you there. So I don't mean to be portraying a life of just walking on clouds, but it kind of goes to how Christian joy is really different than happiness. And Christian joy can coexist with sadness. It's a more stubborn, deeply rooted thing. So this kind of gratitude that we're talking about, it can coexist. Like Paul's saying, rejoice in all circumstances. He's not saying smile. He's not saying that. He's just saying there's a kind of joy that's possible in Christ, rooted, grounded in Him, no matter what's going on.
Amen.
I think that is an incredible way to end the episode, I think. That's just unbelievable, powerful stuff.
Thank you, Professor Paustian.
Oh, total
Thank
pleasure.
you, Professor.
Total pleasure.
We might have to have you on again.
We will. As long as you're willing, we would love to.
Oh, I enjoy this kind of thing very much.
This is a blast. I think I got to go just process it all for like an hour after this and just sit and just enjoy it. But yeah,
You'll find that there were moments I wish I could have back. So there's going to be that too. But thank you guys. No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to talk so much more about all sorts of different stuff. There's communication. There's so many wells you can go down to. I know that we couldn't even touch on, and we didn't even get to apologetics. That was one of the things that we were talking about. Maybe we'd get into today, but that's that's a whole nother incredible can of worms there. So we definitely will need to save that for another day. But yeah, thank you so much, Professor. Again, we appreciated it. This was a really, really awesome conversation, and just blessings on finishing out the rest of the semester. I hope that your classes go well and all the other things you have going on for the Lord right now. And with that being said, I think we'll close it out. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Blessings, and see you guys next week.